Hey everybody, Assalamu alaikum. Hope you're having a wonderful day. Make sure that you hit the subscribe button and the notify button so you'll know when you're getting new episodes. And we just want to grow this project. I thank you in advance. Without further ado, let's get it rolling. The Shout Out Show.
Good afternoon, assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, everybody. This is me, your host, Preacher Moss. I hope everybody's having an excellent day. It's a Sunday, it's our refresh day before we get back to the craziness and hecticness of the week. I want to thank everybody. I always say, for people that are coming for the first time, thank you for coming. We also ask that you hit the subscribe button, the like button, because we're trying to grow the podcast. It's number one for all the people that come on. And I think people need to understand, Sundays are very, very difficult days. Not difficult in a way that there's any discomfort with it. It's just that Sunday is that rush to Monday. So that rush to Monday is always hectic. And that's why today's show, if you will, and I'm getting to the title. And you can read it already, but today's show was a little bit about how we need to possibly slow down a little bit and appreciate who we are, where we are in our own lives. I'm not talking about current events, brothers and sisters. Current events are going to be current events. I'm not talking about COVID. I'm not talking about any of that. I'm talking about holding on to some very long established traditions that unfortunately we have gotten away from. I'm going to say this myself, I have gotten away from some of these traditions that I grew up with. So I thought today would be interesting that we will have a Sunday dinner, if you will, a virtual Sunday dinner, whereby we can entertain ideas that some of the things we used to talk about on Sundays. Why a Sunday dinner was so important. Doing some research, of course, there's a lot of reasons why a Sunday dinner was important. And I grew up, brothers and sisters, happy to have taken part in many Sunday dinners at my grandmother's house in Washington, D.C., 5525 7th Street, Northwest Side, the best side. And it was interesting because it didn't just happen in our house. There was a system. My grandmother's house was a system of row houses that went down to the block. There was an alley, and then it went all the way to the bottom of the street. And it was interesting because everybody had this aspect of Sunday dinner, whereby if you didn't have Sunday dinner, there was always an invitation for you to drop by someplace. Former mayor of Washington, D.C., Marion Barry, God rest his soul, he was infamous on Sundays for going around Washington, D.C., and he would drop in on his constituents. And he would drop in on his constituents to figure out, the words he would say is what you got in that pot. It was an insistence from him, from actually his Southern tradition, that when he came by his constituent's house, particularly on Sunday, that they would have food prepared. Now, as I began to go through this, I realized that this may not be a popular topic, but it's a needed topic. When I say it's a needed topic, I mean that we've lost that tradition in a lot of ways. The hurry up and wait, the hustle and bustle has taken away from what the family dinner was about, which is largely about family time. There were certain aspects of Sunday dinner. Number one, it started with an idea. Use it with your mother. And this is a shout out to all the mothers who toiled in the kitchen. Number one, when they went in the kitchen, nothing was quick. When I say nothing was quick, nothing was quick, meaning that they had a process by which food would be rolled out. A process, if you will, whereby food would be rolled out. And once the food was rolled out, the process for how the food was prepared, this process for how the food was delivered, and how the food was cleaned up. There was an aspect. There was pre-production, production, post-production. So yes, if you ate at the dinner table, you ate some food, at some point in time, your role was going to be involved possibly in cleanup if you didn't cook, and possibly cooking if you were involved in cleanup. I was a only child, so I had to participate in both of them. But what I learned from some reading, just some basic reading, was the idea of community dinner. Community in terms of eating was a social function. The great African tribes looked at eating together as a communal right. When I say a communal right, it was the things that congealed, if you will, the relationship between the highest king and the person who was the lowliest beggar. It was a situation scenario whereby, brothers and sisters, nobody was too important, nobody was insignificant, if you will. The idea of eating represented, in many regards, it represented the power of a king. That a king could feed his subjects, that a king could feed people in his tribe. And I think for the African American tradition, even through slavery, as you go through it, that idea of the commune, the communal dinner, never wavered. On Sundays, when slaves were, I guess, their day to pray, they spent large amounts of time preparing food. And here's an interesting thing. They didn't prepare food just for the day. They didn't. They prepared food for the week because they knew that food that would be given throughout the week would not be suitable. And this is a part of sustenance. This is a part of strategy. And I'm talking about sustenance and strategy and food because when I look back at the whole idea of Sunday dinner, this was a marketplace to discuss ideas. One of my favorite films is a film called Soul Food. If you ever get a chance to rent it. Soul Food. And it actually is probably one of the best, if you will, one of the best representations of what the communal dinner means. It's interesting that everything falls apart once the matriarch, the grandma, passes away, and the family falls apart. And the thing that galvanizes them is that the youngest of the family, tells everybody to come to the house, and he makes the other people who are in conflict with one another think that the other is fixing dinner. And he's able to pull them, if you will, back to the table to have family dinner. And that idea of community and communal, I want to say communal eating, if you will. Because communal eating, when you really think about it, is spiritual food. When we talk about things now, it's interesting, everybody's on a diet. Everybody's on a diet, keto diet. You had the all for low carbs, da 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 da. Back in the day, you know what people talk about? Did you eat enough? Are you full? Can I get you anything else? Not this foolishness about dieting, which is about stopping intermittent fasting and all of that. I'm like, no, man. There was a time whereby when you had enough food, hear me now. When you had enough food, you would go to the people who you knew couldn't go out. Now, this is a sound I heard when I was a kid when I would reach for more food or the wrong place. Here's the sound. See my hand? This is my grandmother's hand, right? See that right there? That meant leave that food alone. Here's my mother's. My mother did say, see right there? It hurt a little bit. It stung, but it just reminded me that there were other people who needed to eat. Let me do that again, because we don't do that enough with our kids. And it reminded me, yes, you ate well, but there's somebody else who hasn't eaten at all. And so we talk about the characteristics of Sunday dinner, because I'm going to keep doing Sunday dinners. I'm actually going to probably have some food on here. And maybe we'll put people on screen and you can show me what you're eating and I'll show you what I'm eating. And we'll have a potluck, if you will, a virtual potluck. But when you come with a virtual potluck, I want you to come with your ideas. I want you to come with some of your ideas about what your family was about or how your family used to celebrate food. Do you hear what I'm saying? Celebrate food. We don't do that a lot. We eat food, but we don't celebrate food because part of celebrating food goes back to that African tradition. Eating good food was a celebration of the hunt. The quality of food that you had was a celebration of the hunt or is a celebration of the harvest. And we don't do that anymore. We don't celebrate the harvest. You want to go celebrate food, you go to Kroger or Piggly Wiggly or Safeway or Giant or HEB, wherever you're going to get some food. That's your celebration. You pick it up, you put it in the cart. Oh, but it's not that. It's a disconnect. We go to social. If you really want to get a feel or organic understanding about celebrating food, you're going to have to go to the farmer's market. Now, let me say this. My father used to take me to a place called Easter Market. And what Easter Market was, it was an open air uh, farmers market. And we would get fresh food. I guess the comparison might be halal food, but like fresh food. Like you would see a piece of meat and you would tell that man, I want you to cut that piece of meat. You would see 5 chickens. I want you to cut those chickens up. And those chickens weren't frozen, brothers and sisters. This chicken wasn't frozen. And I don't mean to be gross, but you can see the blood at the bottom of the bag. You knew that that chicken had just been killed. My point is that began the process. And on Sunday, the conversation always started the same. I don't know how to say it in Arabic. I don't know how to say it in Swahili. I don't know how to say it in Spanish. But the mother is the mother is the boss of the house. And when someone asked her, "What are we going to eat?" she would tell you 3 words. I pulled out. And after the 3 words, she tells you, I pulled out chicken. I pulled out beef. I pulled out fish. And that was it. That was the conversation. What she pulled out. And when I say she pulled it out early in the day. Just so some of you young brothers and sisters out there, to keep your marriages together, take this little bit of advice from your brother, Preacher Moss. When you want to eat and you want to cook, brothers and sisters, if you want to eat chicken at 5 o'clock, don't pull it out to thaw at 4:45. What am I saying? You got to pull it out Big Mama, like Big Mama used to do it. Pull that chicken out at the beginning of the day, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock. And then when you're ready to cook around 4, the fish is thawed, the chicken is thawed, and you're ready to do your thing. There's nothing worse than sitting looking at a person you love, a person you've equated with great common sense, knowledge, and intellect, wondering, how did you think that this chicken was going to thaw in 15 minutes when it's been in the refrigerator for 2 months? You see what I'm saying? But the beginning of it, and this is very important, respect. Mothers ran the kitchen. You may cook in the kitchen, fathers, young children, but mothers ran the kitchen. And the reason they ran the kitchen is because in a very, very subtle way, they controlled diet. When I say controlled diet, they knew everything they were going to put together in a meal. A lot of times people have mismatched meals. You ever seen that before? People have a baked potato and French fries. You ever see that before? You know, they have steak and I have steak and I have hamburger. I'm like, dude, it's the same thing. You know, mothers look at the whole educational scale of health. And they'll tell you, you know what, you need this, you need a starch, you need some greens, da da da. And I'm here to tell you, I love my mother, I love my grandmother. But you know, certain things they would put on my plate, I didn't eat it. I didn't want to eat it. And we didn't have a dog, so I couldn't feed it to the dog and torture the dog. But through coercion, which is I would normally eat it because otherwise you couldn't get up from the table. Remember, you couldn't get up from the table? At one point in time, I sat there and my mother would not let me get up from the table from eating some okra. And I literally was like, I think I'm going to be here till 30 years old. I'm going to be looking around and my kids are going to be staring at me going, Daddy, just eat it so we can move. Sly thoughts, funny thoughts. But let me give you a little bit more detail, if you will. Yesterday, I talked about, I did an open letter to Congressman John Lewis. May God be pleased. May Allah be pleased with him. The one thing they don't talk about the civil rights movement, even the Nation of Islam, is the spiritual engagement and placement of food. The spiritual engagement and placement of food. If you ever watch the movie Selma about the crossing of Edmund Pettit Bridge, Bloody Sunday, you know what they had before then? They had good food. If you ever want to look at the Nation of Islam, and this is a big one of the things they centered around was about diet and the idea of diet. Like you can go to the temple on Sunday, but when you got home, you either the food was ready or was in the process of being ready. Meaning that you would sometimes you even cook it before you went to church. And when you would get back, it already be go. And I'm saying, people, we've lost that discipline. It's very quick, it's a very microwave culture. I can probably say this, and I might be wrong. I believe some of the issues around COVID could be corrected in some regards if the diets were correct. If the diets were correct. If people were eating certain things. Like for myself, my whole idea of COVID is it attacks your immune system. So what do? You build up your immune system. I'm not talking about pills and tablets. I'm talking about get yourself some spinach, get yourself some asparagus, some super greens, get yourself some kale. And those things, brothers and sisters, are the things that have nothing to do with COVID. Those were the prescriptions back in the day that made sure that you went to school a large percentage of the time. Like when I think about it, I didn't miss a whole lot of school when I was a kid. I didn't miss a whole lot of school. I mean, back then you had to be darn near dead to not go to school. But for the most part, we went to school. And when I say we went to school in the worst conditions, rainstorms, snowstorms, sleet, hurricanes, but we got there, we came, and we weren't sick kids. And what's really important, we weren't sick kids, and there wasn't an abundance of these emergency clinics or urgent care or anything like that. My mother would make sure I ate certain things to make sure I was okay, to make sure that my immune system was built up. Now, let me ask something else about Sunday dinner. Sunday dinner was always a placeholder for how we were supposed to be living our lives. Let me say this again. It was a placeholder. Meaning that for Sunday dinner, we will all gather. Listen to me, gather. And it followed a series of gatherings. Like if you're a Christian, you're a Baptist, you're a child, you did Sunday school, junior usher, you did church and something there, and then you go back. Even the idea, brothers and sisters, of food after funerals has a lot to do with Sunday dinner. Now, in my case, brothers and sisters, I talk about Sunday dinner in a different way, and I'm going to bring in Sister Sultana too. Yes, we used to grow our food. Now, my grandmother Gladys, even my mother, and my other grandmother, Isabella Moss, they made a huge fuss about getting fresh foods. Now, some of y'all are going to laugh. Some of y'all are going to laugh. This is a true story. But my grandmother, when I was a child, we would have to go to Safeway, but we have to go at a particular time. We have to go when they were unloading the food before they put it on ice. And you can imagine my grandmother looking through greens, if you will, looking through greens, looking through snap peas, looking through green French beans, looking through everything and picking each bean. Hear me out. Picking each bean. And some of y'all gonna freak out. Some of y'all gonna laugh. Some of y'all remember this. You had to participate in some way in preparing Sunday dinner. One of the things I was really good at, my grandmother taught me, is I learned how to roll collard greens. Hear me what I'm saying? I knew how to roll collard greens, get the spine out of them, and cut them accordingly, put them in a pot. Now, it wasn't a big thing. And I was the greens guy. If you came up 5525 7th Street Northwest on a Sunday after 2, 2:30, I'm here to tell you something. You might see your boy Preacher Moss snapping beans. Pap pap, pap pap. Listen to that now. Pap pap, pap pap, pap pap. And it had a rhythm to it. Pap pap, pap pap. And if you heard a pap, that was a bad bean. But it was a pap pap. And I'm telling you, that was a name. That was actually the sound of the whole neighborhood. And you can walk up and down the street and smell what people were cooking. And you knew what people are. You knew what people are. Certain things didn't happen on Sunday in the neighborhood. On Sunday, hear me now. On Sunday, you didn't see alcoholics. You didn't see winos. Let me say that again. On Sunday in the neighborhood, when I was growing up, you didn't see alcoholics. You didn't see winos. As I got older, you had heroin addicts. But even the heroin addicts understood somewhere, someplace, there was a Sunday dinner waiting for them. Crackheads, I can't say that, but heroin addicts, yeah, because they still had appetites. And that's no knock to crackheads or anybody dealing with substance abuse problem. I'm just giving you the facts. But even then, there was compassion. There was the daily routine, and we would sit down and eat. And before you ate, check it out. Before you ate, you gave thanks. You gave thanks. You said grace. You made some kind of a dua over the food, but you said grace. And it was usually the youngest person that said grace. And you better say it right because it could get you killed. I mean, I did one. My mother, I think I still have the wound on the back of my neck. My mother told me to say grace, and I ain't know anything. I've been watching comedy. I'm a little kid. That's it. Good bread, good meat, good Lord. Let's eat. Pow. That's what. And I remember that. But my mother told me, don't disrespect the Lord like that. And she said something that was really, really important when I ate. She said, take your time. She said, act like you appreciate your food. And there's a lot of metaphors to the food. There's sustenance, there was patience, there was respect, there was anticipation, if you will. When I say anticipation, it was anticipation that we were all going to get together. My mom always laughs, when she got married, there was expectations that her and my dad would have to be at my grandmother's house for Sunday dinner every Sunday. And I remember showing up and it'd be so many relatives at the house. You hear me saying? And it wasn't Christmas, it wasn't Thanksgiving. They'd be there and they showed up for Sunday dinner. Now, my grandmother's been passed a long time. My Aunt Ruth passed as well. But my cousin Frank still maintains the Sunday dinner. Now it's more like, y'all come. People don't plan to come. Sometimes they drop through, sometimes they don't. Sometimes I hit him up and I say, hey, what's going on? What's on the menu at Frank's place? And he laughs because I'm calling back something that we both grew up with. And sometimes, he cooks early. So I'll wash dishes or what like that. But it's funny because even in that tradition, and I'm saying this because my grandmother lived to be 91. I'm sorry, 94 years old. And one of the things we remarked about was how she was able to come up with menus and good food for all those years. For all of those years, for all of my adult years, she was able to come up with menus and food. And one of the most interesting things, as she was transitioning, if you will, we actually bought some food to the hospice that we made. And she really couldn't take the food. So what we did was we put it around her and we set up food around her and we let her just smell it. Now, I love to tell you, she jumped up. We're in a hospice, you know what it is. But you can see just a slight hint of a smile. Like, it's about time the Negroes bought me some food. Even though she couldn't eat it, it was just a slight hint, brothers and sisters. And as I close, I would implore all of us, at some point in time on Sunday, shut it down. Shut it down. If you're not a great cook, you know what? Go get some chicken. Go to Popeyes or wherever you go get your chicken, fried chicken. Because it's not the food, it's the act of having a community. I've been to some people's houses on Sunday. They invited me for Sunday dinner. They weren't great cooks, but we had great conversation and I had great respect because I recognized the effort of what they were trying to do. Now, I'm not saying everybody can have a soul food. That was a movie. But the idea of soul food did come from someplace. And it came from this idea that Sunday dinner is one of the most important days of the week. We don't talk about Sunday dinner. Everybody's running this way, running that way. Everybody's got so busy. I'm like, yeah, I get it. But look at the genius of this. Through tradition of the African tradition, they talk about with the griots, that the communal aspect of that dinner, and you were putting it on a Sunday, which was the Christian's God day. Imagine if Muslims on Friday had Friday dinner. Well, we all sat down after the masjid, after Juma, and we got maybe around 5 or 6 o'clock. Now we'll do it during Ramadan. Check that out. We'll do it during Ramadan, but the rest of the year, for those other days of the lunar calendar, we're not doing it. And look at the behavior between when you're eating, doing your iftar during Ramadan and your iftar outside of Ramadan. Something to think about. So let me share just these last few thoughts, and I'm gonna get out of here. You know why? Because I got some food cooking, and I don't want to burn it. But I'm gonna ask everybody: take a moment on Sunday. If you don't cook food, you know what? If you don't cook food, buy somebody a meal. Give them the meal. Maybe it's that neighbor you haven't seen in a while. Maybe it's a brother, sister, cousin you haven't seen in a while. Take them out to dinner. Even if you don't make the food, take them out to dinner. You could be a horrible cook, but take them out to dinner because you still have the potential to make it your Sunday dinner. All right, everybody. So listen, I'm not gonna bug out. I want to give a shout out to my cousin Frank. I have to give him some love. He's been holding down Sunday dinner since 2005, brothers and sisters. And I give him the love because he'll make the food, he'll cook it, and then he's been taking it up to my grandmother's house since 2005 to feed my aunt. So, big love, Frank, big love. So all of you, brothers and sisters, I don't want to hold you, you know why? Because it's most of it's going on at 6:30 where you are. Guess what? 5:30 Central. I'm not gonna do the rest of the math for the West Coast, but you know what? It's time to eat. So I'm through with that. You guys enjoy. Preaching Moss. Thank you, and I'll see you tomorrow.
Hey everybody, this is your brother Preacher Moss. Listen, I hope that you enjoyed your Shout Out Show experience. We'll be back with the next show, the next Shout Out Show. A simple ask before you go, please help your brother out. Click that subscribe button, click that notify button, and I'll see you again on this side of the microphone. You probably wonder what that smell is. That's me. I smell good. And the reason I smell good is because I use oils from Tarifa Tar. So I'm not saying you can't smell good. I'm not even saying you stink. I'm saying you have the opportunity to smell exquisite. Check out tarifatar.com for some of the best oils and scents in town.